Hi, soul friends. It's Tanasa Saintpur, and welcome back to another episode of Minutes on Growth. Today, I have the lovely Dr. Winnie with us. She is a professor, a acupuncturist, as well as someone who specializes in releasing trauma work. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Tanas. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you on because, first of all, your energy is so calm, so relaxing, which is great. Um, Great to have on. And I would love to talk to you a little bit about yourself and your journey before we start talking about, your work and the profound impact that you've had in multiple communities.
Yeah, so I started with a spinal injury. And when your spine is crooked, then all the organs are sitting in the wrong place and just pretty much head to toe, right? Neck pain, hip pain, ankle pain, everything that can have pain has pain.
Mhm.
So I started studying acupuncture, and halfway through that journey, I got into a near-death car accident. That's when I discovered meditation and my spirituality. And yeah, that's basically how I learned to be calm.
Wow. So when you mentioned spine issues, I just thought of myself because so strange. But I think this is a great time to talk about it. But many years ago, after the death of my grandpa, I really didn't have time to process the pain. So randomly, like 3 weeks after his death, I bent down to pick up something and I never got back up. I just couldn't get back up. And so I was rushed to the hospital. They did like an MRI. They said you have an inflammation in your disc. And for pretty much 6 months, I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand. It was so, so, so painful until I met actually a healer. He was a yoga therapist and he came and honestly, like he would just put his finger on like some random points in my body. I would scream, but it wasn't the pain of his finger. It was just as if as I was releasing all of this hurt and sadness. And it was mind blowing, to be honest. So the moment you said that, I thought of my own journey and wow, sometimes really trauma does get stored in the body and it can manifest itself in physical diseases and illnesses.
Exactly. So trauma is stored in the body. And a lot of the times when we're in pain, I don't want to say that we manifested the pain,
Hmm.
but it's really because we got disconnected to love.
Hmm.
So, you had mentioned that you want me to talk about shadow work.
Hmm.
And I want to tell the audience a little bit about the importance of shadow work because we've had thousands of years of patriarchy where we value looking good, right? We judge each other by, okay, what car are you driving? What clothes you're wearing? How much money is in your bank account? What college did you graduate to? How much do you make? And we don't value, well, how kind is that person?
Right.
How calm is that person? How much love is that person? So because we value looking good, so we prefer love, we prefer light, and we don't like to talk about the darkness, such as fear, shame, guilt, anger, grief. It's like we want to just sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
And if we don't see it, then it's not there, right? Is that true or
Right. Out of
false?
sight, out of mind.
Exactly. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Out of sight, out of mind. So it's really funny because I had been in this marriage for 19 years with this one person. And I really showed up to this relationship with a lot of people pleasing energy, not just pleasing him,
Hmm.
but also just pleasing the world. So many years I would go through the motion. Okay, smile for the camera, take picture for birthday, Mother's Day, Easter, Christmas. anniversary, right? And just to make it look good. And then I go on social media and I post these really beautiful pictures of my husband and my kids. But it's all, I don't want to say it's all a lie, but it's maybe 50% true, right? Because 50% is true. I do am and grateful for having kids and having food and shelter and all of those things, but it's also 50% false in the sense that I'm not talking about my struggles. I'm not talking about my anger, my fear, my shame, my grief. Part of it is that as a society, we're so uncomfortable with darkness.
Right.
But the truth is, why should we be afraid of darkness? Light cannot exist without shadow.
Right.
And, last I checked, we have daytime, we have nighttime. And the day we have the sun, and the nighttime we have the moon. So sun is associated with the yang energy,
Mm-hmm.
the masculine energy, the productivity energy. And the nighttime, the dark, is associated with the moon, the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
It is associated with resting
Right.
and nourishing, recharging our batteries. So not only are we valuing looking good, and we're valuing men because the women, we get paid 77 cents on the dollar, but we're also not valuing resting
Mm-hmm.
and meditating, reflecting, recharging our battery. And so to say that we are afraid of darkness is almost like saying we're afraid of resting. We're afraid of being a woman. We're afraid of all things that are yin.
Right. Super powerful. So the importance of integrating the yin and the yang in our life, as uncomfortable as it might be at times.
So yeah, exactly. It's so funny because the first thing you said is, wow, Winnie, you have so much peace. The truth about peace is, mathematically, peace is when we're at zero. So what that means is, when we bring together to oneness all the light and all the dark, right? So we put together everything we're grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything that makes us really uncomfortable. So we put all the pluses and all the minuses in our life together in this oneness. That is peace,
Right.
right? Peace is when we're not preferring gratitude over discomfort. Peace is accepting the totality of the universe, which includes both plus and minus.
Right. So it's not like we are dismissing or disregarding or overlooking one, but rather, combining the two to balance it out. Wow. I love that. I love how you said peace is zero. That's such a interesting perspective to share. So thank you for that. Wonderful.
Another thing that's
Go ahead.
interesting is, a lot of women, we're disconnected from our magic.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean is, guess what? Before there was Jesus, there was Mother Mary.
Right.
Okay.
I love that.
Before there was the sun and the moon, there was the void that created the sun and the moon, right? So that void is actually in our womb, right? So what is the most magical thing is our ability to give birth and make baby.
Mm-hmm.
And every single woman is a goddess with the power to create magic. Unfortunately, most women I know do not love their bellies. They're like, oh, I'm fat, or most women are afraid to be big. They want to be small.
Right.
And most women don't love getting their period.
Mm-hmm.
So many women think it's a hassle. I bleed, it slows me down. But actually, every single month when I bleed, it is the most powerful time of the month. And if you don't know this, please pay attention. So patriarchy will tell us, oh my God, she's so moody. She's having PMS. She's all over the place. But as it turns out, most women wear a people-pleasing mask, except when we're on our period, because when we're on a period, we literally have an inability to keep this people-pleasing mask on, which means that the version of us when we have our period is the most authentic version of me. I repeat, when women menstruate, that's when we're the most psychic, most intuitive, and most powerful magician during our period.
Wow.
So if you are ashamed or think your period is a hassle, I invite you to consider, yes, okay, we don't want to spiritual bypass. So the minuses of having a period, okay, maybe we get tired, maybe we get antisocial, maybe we can't go into the hot tub, maybe we can't go swim in the ocean. But the pluses of having a period, it's we're the most powerful, most psychic, most intuitive, and most magical.
Such a powerful reframe on that, honestly, especially in a society where, exactly as you said, a patriarchal society that kind of forces us to wear these masks all the time, even during menstruation, right? So we don't want to be viewed upon as, the crazy girl who's PMSing, who's, we're always like, there's so much narrative around where we're forced to, exactly as you said, people please, and it can get really overwhelming and tiring and exhausting. And the way you said it, the way you said, like, this is a time for us to be our most authentic self, our most intuitive self, our most um, powerful self, really provides us with a different, an alternative, more empowering view um, for this. So, wow, wow. And you said womb healing, and I thought of, with our womb and the power that lies there. And it made me think of a discussion that I was having a while back with someone about, when we get our first period as girls. And I remember myself, I was, I think, 10 years old. I was in school, and then all the boys started making fun of me. They're like, oh my God, there's something on your skirt. And I like rushed to the bathroom and I started crying. I was so embarrassed and so ashamed. I was too young, so no one really thought to have that conversation with me. But fortunately, I was raised in a family where both my parents were so open about these topics. And I remember my dad picked me up and I was so scared. I don't even know why. I think society like put this fear in my head that what I'm going through is bad, or like there's something wrong with me. And he just picked me up and he said, congratulations, you're a woman now. And he called the whole family. He made such a big deal out of it. But I was talking to other friends and they said, well, they didn't have such experiences with their families, and how that had impacted them, and that the trauma that they had held on in their wombs because of that shame that society put on them during their first experience, and pretty much every other experience after that. It's like a hush hush topic, don't talk about it. So what has your experience been with that?
Wow, I'm so glad that your dad did such a good job. A plus for your dad.
Right.
My dream is to initiate women into their goddess self, and every woman that gets their period should be celebrated because they're really turning on a gift. And I'm going to tell a quick story. You know, in the Bible, first God created Adam, which is a man. And then God saw that Adam can't make it alone. So God gave Adam a helper. Now, to be a helper, to be able to help, means that you have something powerful. Because if you don't have something powerful, how can you help others?
Right.
So already it tells you that women have more power. Think about the name Grace, Grace.
I have it tattooed on me.
The word grace is only ever applied to a woman, but not a man. Why? Because women can embody this grace, which is an attribute of God. So let's break down this grace. Actually, I believe that everyone is born children of God. So everyone has this grace.
Right.
Women were so lucky to menstruate every month because when we get polluted with fear, guilt, shame, all the darkness and the shadow, we enter what I call the self-cleaning oven, right? So imagine once a month, we shed away all the BS that keeps us from our grace. So basically, if a woman is in her power, she knows that every month when she menstruates, it's the time to let go powerfully everything that no longer serves her, and so that she can get back to her grace.
Wow. So powerful. So many reframes that I think we as a collective really need to program into our subconscious mind so that we can let go of all this shame that has been pushed onto us, in my opinion. And talking about shame, I know that you believe that when we share it, when we talk about our shame, it takes away shame's power, right? And it creates space for healing for others as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Brene Brown says empathy is the medicine, because whatever we are ashamed of, when we share it, then we receive the empathy from other people, and it literally, the shame cannot survive empathy. I remember this really powerful experience. In 2018, I attended this goddess makeover retreat in Bali. And before that, I've never done any kind of shame sharing, but the facilitator was like, okay, now write on a piece of paper the top 5 things that you're ashamed about. There were 24 women, and we went around in the circle, and everyone read off the top 5 things that they were ashamed of. And one of the things that I was ashamed of was abortion. And I've never told anybody. It's like my mom doesn't know, my girlfriends don't know. It's like I just kept that to myself. I'm so ashamed I can't talk about it. To my surprise, including myself, 7 of the 24 women actually raised their hand, as in that is how many women actually also share the same shame, but nobody was able to talk about it. But because I had the courage to share it, now 6 other women got a chance to heal their shame from their abortion.
Wow.
So when we share our shame, it's actually a huge service, because not only are we healing ourselves, but we're giving other women or men, right? Doesn't have to be. When we share the deepest, darkest parts of ourselves, it actually gives other people permission to look inside the lid, that, that box that they have just really packed and jammed and closed the lid and don't open. Yeah.
Yeah. And even if I've noticed that sometimes, when someone's sharing with me, even if I'm not ready to share the same thing that I'm going through as them, just hearing them, talk about their experience makes me feel like I'm not alone, right? That I'm not the only one experiencing these feelings, that I'm not the only one who went through such a traumatic experience. And in my opinion, it's a very validating experience too, to know that, hey, like there's other people on this journey with you. And if you ever do need support, you can reach out to these people. And it's not a lonely world after all.
Exactly. So what you're alluding to is pain is a universal experience.
Right.
Every single person experiences pain. However, suffering is optional. So if I experience pain and I hold on to it, I don't tell anybody about it. I just quarantine myself and keep all the pain to myself. Then the pain will multiply and then I am stuck in my suffering. But if I experience pain and I go accept it, I maybe talk to somebody and let them help me find acceptance, then what gets shared is transformed. So there are two ways. One is you can go to a girlfriend or find a talk therapist, or just journaling, right? If you just
Mhm.
talk to yourself, write down your story. Writing is so therapeutic. If you're not ready to talk to a therapist, if you're not ready to talk to a girlfriend, at least put it down on paper.
Wow. Reminded me of there's this wonderful, wonderful writer. Her name is Amber Ray, and one of her journaling prompts was, "Hey, name the emotion, like name the feeling. Hey, fear, it's me. I'm here to listen. What do you have to share with me?" And I remember doing that prompt a couple of times with fear and with shame and with guilt, and there was so much that needed to come out. So I definitely agree with you. Like journaling can be super powerful when we're not yet there to share it with someone else, whether it's a friend or a therapist, because ultimately we need to be able to face it ourselves, right, before we can share it. And that can be sometimes challenging.
Yeah, that's why I love posting on social media, and I want to write many books and teach many classes, because I want to share my story with vulnerability, all the mistakes I've made and all the things I've healed, and also give people an opportunity to share their pain.
Mhm.
Because I really believe that when we come together as a group, we can transform together. And well, thank God for Zoom.
Right.
It's really allowed me to reach so many people just beyond what's driving distance.
Definitely. You mentioned your mistakes, and I want to just briefly talk about that in the sense of we're scared. We're scared to make mistakes. We're scared to make mistakes because we live in a culture that is like super cancel culture. You do something wrong, you're immediately canceled. You say something wrong, like there's no room for mistakes. So now we're like already scared. There's so much fear around making a mistake that we end up getting stuck and most likely to make a mistake because we're not thinking straight and we're not tapped into our intuition and we're just like have these guards up. So, first of all, how do we overcome this fear of mistakes? And how can we shift our perspective to kind of create space and grace to make mistakes, because we're not perfect and no one is?
Yeah. So I'm actually being called to write my third book. It's going to be called 80% Good. And
Mhm.
the idea being, in life, we can spend 20% effort to get 80% good. And to perfect the last 20%, we have to spend 80% effort. You know, we live in this world with so much burnout. We have burnout in the public school teacher at 40%. We have burnout of doctors, nurses, even lawyers, even all kinds of profession, even finance. Like, people just get burnt out. And the reason why people get burnt out, I mean, partly it's the company's fault, but partly it is the way that they think about work. So let's say I have two people, okay, A and B. They do the same amount of work. However, one person is really stressed out about performance. They worry about how other people are going to judge them.
Mm.
They're afraid of failing. And then when they fail, they're angry at themselves. They judge themselves and attack themselves as a bad person, and they shame themselves for dropping the ball. The other person shows up the same 9 to 5. However, this other person is not attached to the outcome. There's no fear, no anger, no overthinking. They just show up to have a good time. So two people have a 9 to 5 job. One person feels so stressed, they don't even have time to pee. And one person, it's just like, I'm having the time of my life. So it could be the same 9 to 5 job, but it creates two different experiences. One person, oh, I'm burnt out. This job is so stressful. I can't take it anymore. Another person's like, wow, that was so much fun. I can't wait to do that again tomorrow.
Perspective.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they look at me, they're like, Winnie, you do how many things? Right? You're like a professor and you're a doctor and you're like, go on all these podcast interview and you teach all these classes and you hold church every Sunday and you teach belly dancing and you have so many things and you write so many books. Like, how do you do everything? And the answer is, I'm not afraid of failing. It's
Right.
kind of like this. Let's say I have $100 to spend. If I spend $20 still holding grudges of my parents and my childhood trauma, and I spend $20 still angry at my ex-husband or ex whatever boss and ex-girlfriend, any old grudges, and I spend $20 worried about how I'm going to fail, I spend $20 worried about how my kids are going to fail, then I only have $20 left to spend on my projects.
Right.
But if I let go of what my parents did to me, I let go of what my ex-husband did to me, and I'm not afraid of how I'm going to fail, and I'm not afraid of what's going to happen to my children. Now I have $100 to spend, so I'm really rich.
So literally failure is the fear of failure is an expensive asset to hold on to. It's a liability.
Yeah, so the fear of failure is in the future, but also holding grudges of all the ways other people failed you, right? So you know, in my example, $40 is holding grudges on how people failed me.
Right.
And $40 is how I'm afraid of how I or the people I love are going to fail, right? So if I let go of all the anger of the past and all the fear of the future, then I should have $100 to spend. And yeah, that's much better when I have a lot of money.
Right. So fear of failure and grudges are expensive and not worth it. So let them go. So to create space for growth, for love, for inspiration, for light, for faith and hope and all the good things. So my last question to you, Dr. Winnie, is if you could go back to that point in your life where you felt the most under pressure to be a people pleaser, what advice, knowing what you know today and experiencing all that you've experienced thus far, what advice would you give to her?
Get help. It's really funny. So I'm rewinding the clock to about 8 years ago when I was having the darkest times of my life. I was literally crying 3 hours a day in severe anxiety and depression. And I resisted therapy. A, I think it's expensive and I don't want to spend the money. And B, I don't want to sit and talk about my problems because I don't want to find out just exactly all the ways that I failed.
Right.
And that's why I have so many offerings. So actually, I'm promoting this new book that's coming out that's called Unlocking Light. It's about healing in the soul, heart, mind, energy, and body level. So, what is great about this is when we talk, we're engaging the mind. And it's good and bad, right? The mind is like a knife. The knife can be used to kill you, but it can also be used to chop wood to build houses. The knife can be used to chop vegetables and feed the family. So the mind is both a danger, but also an asset. What's great about this book is it introduces you to all these modalities. So guess what? If you're not ready to talk about it, there are other modalities. For example, I'm currently passionately promoting this belly dance class. You know what? You can just dance it off.
Mhm.
And it's a very women empowering experience where, remember how we talked about the womb and how powerful that is? There's nothing more healing than seeing women of all ages and all sizes and shapes all on Zoom, right? Dancing together. So if you're not ready, you can have your camera off, right? But even if your camera off, you get to see, bigger, smaller, older, younger, all kinds of women coming into their power, eager to uplift and empower each other. And that is so powerful. And I think that sometimes healing is like this. Be very compassionate. Because maybe you're not ready to talk about the problem, but maybe you're able to sit in the vibrations of other women who have healed themselves, right? One of the things that my yoga teacher told me, this is a secret. Even if you can't do a handstand, if you're in the room of other people doing a handstand, you're actually in the vibration of handstand. So even if you can't do a handstand, you're still getting the benefits of handstand
Wow.
if you open your heart to it, right? So even if you're not ready to belly dance, but if you're sitting in the vibration of that, you're still getting the benefit of the self-love, the self-acceptance, the body confidence. So really, what I really want to tell the version of me 8 years ago is go out, be in community, let yourself be loved.
Let yourself be loved, being
Yeah.
open to love. Wow. That's a powerful message. And I love how you said, even if you're not ready for therapy, there are so many other modalities that that you can try out to allow yourself to be loved and to love yourself, because sometimes, exactly as you said, we think therapy and we're like, I don't want to talk about it. Or, I don't have the means to go to therapy. So just having these other options available to us is extremely empowering. So where can people purchase your book, your latest book?
Yeah. So my website is mindfulhealingheart.com. And there's a section called book, and there's a section called courses. So you can find out about the Qigong and the belly dancing. I offer the Qigong is part of a nonprofit. So even if you have $0, you can come in and just be seen and tell me about your problems. And the belly dancing is a women empowerment thing. So I really hope to see you inside these containers. The group thing is really powerful because you don't have to talk about your problems. You can just heal as a collective.
Wow. Thank you so, so much, Dr. Winnie, with sharing. And I'm going to put all that information in the show notes so people can access it as soon as possible. And I would love to join your belly dancing. So I'm going to check that out myself as well.
Yeah. I'll send you a link.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Winnie, for being with us and for sharing your wisdom. And thank you, everyone else, for listening. Speak soon.